Recording in progress. meeting of the policy committee to order. The first item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Could everybody please stand for the pledge? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First, our second item is the approval of the agenda. Mr. Strubinger?
I move that we approve the agenda.
Oops, I think Kathy might be muted. Sorry about that. I don't.
Kathy, you're muted.
Oh. She's trying to, I think she's trying to second.
I was having a problem getting back to this part. I second that.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Mr. Strubinger made the motion to approve the agenda. Ms. Robine seconded. Any comments about the agenda or discussion? Seeing none, I'll call for the vote. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Wonderful. Unanimous approval of the agenda. And the next item is the public comment section. Ms. Cushenberry, do we have any comments?
We don't have any. We don't have any.
Perfect. Okay. Moving right along to item D, that's the approval of the July 12th, 2021 committee meeting minutes. Mr. Strubinger? Oops, I don't know why I can't. I didn't hear him.
No, I didn't hear him. He has his hand up. Oh,
Yeah.
there.
Okay.
There you
Can you
go.
hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
I move that we approve the July 12th committee meeting minutes.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a second? Ms. Robine?
I second it.
Wonderful. Any discussion on those July 12th committee meeting minutes? Seeing none, we'll call for the vote. Signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Okay.
Moving on to the next item, item E is discussion of board members logged in with multiple devices during meetings. And this was recommended to committee, and I wanted to see if anybody had any discussion or comments on this. I believe this came forward due to multiple devices being logged in at one time and that causing some confusion and issues with meetings. Mr. Strubinger?
Yeah, I'm a little confused by what we could possibly do about this. It just seemed, if board members log in with multiple devices, nothing we can do about that. I'm not sure what the harm is either. I mean, I think I know the harm, but I'm not going to say it at this meeting. But it could introduce, especially in an executive session, it could be introducing other parties. But I don't think there's anything we can do about it. I don't think there's. We don't want to make a policy if someone's having trouble with their computer and they have to use their phone to augment that. We don't want to write a policy that says you can't have two, because that would be one instance where you would have to do that. So I'm not sure where we go from here. So now I've added my confusion.
Ms. Robine, any thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just revisiting the policy. It seems like if one device isn't working, then why don't you log out of that one device and just use the one that's working? That's what I don't understand, why they're why you could be logged in on two devices. If you're logged in on two devices, then they should both be working, right? I don't know. I've never tried to log in on multiple devices, so.
I've only ever switched between them. And I think just for clarification for those that are watching or listening, when we say logging in, I believe we mean logging into Zoom
Yes.
meetings electronically. And that's kind of what's caused to come up. But I agree, Kathy, and David, I've only ever switched between devices into Zoom. And I'm not sure how we necessarily create a policy. Madam Chair, Dr. Gwatz?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. In preparation for today's discussion, I went through our policy manuals to see, what applied to this concern. And I concur with Kathy's assessment and yours in that, certainly some of the board members have multiple devices, but I don't see why more than one should be connected at a time, i.e. given the login for the meeting. And I really think our policy already addresses that. And I will read some of the policies that apply. So GC2, governing commitments, 21 is electronic participation. D says electronic participation in the board's executive session may be permitted. It is the responsibility of the board member to ensure security and confidentiality of his or her participation in executive session. Obviously, confidentiality is much more apparent and transparent if only one device is connected at that time. Policy GC7, board members' code of conduct. Number 4, to build trust among members and to ensure an environment conducive to effective governance, members will D, make every reasonable effort to protect the integrity of the district, and item H, maintain appropriate confidentiality. Policy GC8, board member conflict of interest. No board member shall knowingly use his official office to obtain an economic interest for himself, a family member, an individual with whom the board member is associated, or a business with whom the board member is associated. And I think this has definitely been an issue at one of our recent executive sessions where a member was using his business to obtain using his official office to obtain an economic interest for himself. And the state statute, Article 7, rules of conduct for public officials, Section 813-700, states the same thing that our policy, I read you in policy GC8, conflict of interest, and should no public official, public member, or public employee may knowingly use his official office membership or employment to obtain an economic interest in him or herself. So I think that we already really, to maintain integrity of the district and appropriate confidentiality, I think one device at a time is appropriate, even if you have multiple devices. You are only one board member, you are not 2 or 3 board members. That's the way I would interpret what I've just read to you. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Yes, ma'am. Mr. Stribinger.
Thank you. To go back to Kathy's question, you could have a computer where the speakers do not work. So you're using your phone in place of the speakers. If you only were on your phone, you wouldn't be able to see, and we've gone through this a couple of times, you wouldn't be able to see what's up on the screen. So I think that was offered as an explanation once. I'm not sure if it was to everyone or just to me. And that's plausible. For the second thing, with Dr. Wads's point, I know we're all concerned about confidentiality, but you could be logged on to Zoom and recording it with your phone off to the side and nobody would know it. So that that can go on no matter what we do. So There's no way we can flesh out, I think, what the real problem is, which none of us is going to speak out loud. And that is that we feel that maybe confidential information is leaking real time out of our executive sessions. And I just don't have any way around it other than enforcing the policies that Dr. Quads pointed out. And even then it's kind of difficult, because how are you going to say you're doing that and the person says, no, I'm not, and then what? Then what do you do? Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. We go on for a half an hour and, we can't prove it. So I think I understand what the problem is. And I think all of us are really sensitive to it, and all of us would like to somehow stop it. But I just don't think we can. Thank you.
Ms. Robine?
What if we enforced what we have written as 21C? Any member participating in such fashion will identify the persons present in the location from which the member is participating. Maybe when people are participating electronically, the chair should just go around and say, can you identify who's with you? And in public session, I guess anyone could be in the room because it's the same as public session, but not an electronic. I don't know, maybe we just, that is written in our, that they will identify the persons present with them. So maybe we just start asking them, people who are doing it remotely to identify, so
Yeah.
It's written here. We haven't done it, but perhaps we should.
That's a good point. Dr. Glatz?
I do think that's a good point that Kathy just made, and I can certainly do that. I guess I would like Robin to speak, since she was the one that's also dealt with the if you will, Robin, you have dealt with the member saying their tablet or laptop is not functional, and I'd like to know what you have learned about that, because you were told from IT.
The member said the laptop was not working. He was instructed to bring it back so that they can figure out what was going on. And so that if it wasn't working, we would give them a loaner or a replacer. So, and it has not been returned.
Thank you, Robin.
Is that Mr. Campbell? Yeah, Mr. Campbell.
Yes, I believe, go along with David. You're not gonna stop this. And I think it's a waste of time even discussing it, because board member, he's not gonna change. You know who we're talking about, so I would just leave it alone. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Mr. Campbell, can you put your hand down for me, please? Thank you, sir. Okay. So if there's,
So I want to just ask one more question. So with the, if I ask them to identify the persons present in the location, does Ms. Cartledge have a comment about that?
that's a good question too. Ms. Cartledge, is she on? I didn't.
Yes.
I was trying to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Good afternoon, board members. Thank you for letting me be present today with you. I guess my concern is we all know that in the past that confidential information shared in executive session has managed to be released and it's caused harm to some people. When you're in executive session, there shouldn't be anybody else in the room with you. Nobody else should be present. So you could ask that question, but I must say that I'm concerned about how I can speak in executive session because I don't ever want to say anything that could cause a breach of confidentiality that would harm another person. And that happened and it happened back in 2020, and it was very adverse consequence for family. I don't ever want that to happen again. And also, as you all know, that some of the matters that I need to address you, could tell you about, they've involved our children. And I would never want a breach of the FERPA law where any information about a child was leaked because it could cause great harm to the students. And I need to be able to speak freely to you, but I feel like I'm limited in what I can say.
Ms. Cartledge, if I may ask you a
Yeah.
follow-up question to that.
Sure.
On instances where there are breaches, if someone, whether it be indirectly or directly by a board member, if something is leaked, there are appropriate remedies provided under the law to the district and to the aggrieved party, correct?
Well, the trouble is that when we look at the ethics commission, the ethics commission takes the position that they're concerned about whether it's an economic benefit, indirect or direct, to a family member. And then, the governor will remove if there's been a criminal conviction, but it's just a very difficult situation because we don't know how the confidentiality is breached.
Right.
And that's what's really difficult for me as an attorney, because I have a fiduciary duty to protect the board and our staff and our students.
Yeah, I'm
So
just
I
trying
have
to see if there's a penalty essentially in place for if something was to occur.
Yeah, but I don't know what that penalty would be, Dr. Wisniewski. It's hard to, you don't always know how it was leaked.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm just trying to see if there's something we could cite in our policies that, reference those penalties. But
Yeah, I mean, we have to,
Other
board members, as Dr. Watts addressed that about, maintaining confidentiality, and so it's just a really hard situation.
Okay, I don't see any other hands up. So I think I do have, okay, I have another hand raised, Mr. Smith.
I don't. My question would be, what would be what would be within the legal law of rights that we have to police this issue?
Pardon?
My question would be, and what legal and what legal ramification would we have within the law to police the situation?
So
if
are you
everyone's elected official.
referring to the board?
Yeah. If everyone's elected official, to what rights do we have by law to police the situation when it comes to the situation? That would be that's my question. What does the law state?
I have to defer to our counsel on
and,
what the law states. I know that the board is within its purview to enact policies. But
I'm asking specifically about the law. What does the law state? I know, and before we went to the we've gotten the governor. I mean
the Attorney General opinion.
Opinions on it. What is the Attorney General?
Mr. Smith, I'm glad you helped me remember that. So I can send you all that Attorney General opinion. I think it talked about, disciplining a board member as far as, having like a censure, reprimand, or acknowledgement.
No, I'm not talking about.
That's what's in that attorney.
Right, but no, I'm saying and the Attorney General, for the Attorney Generals, what authority do we have over another board member, or to ask him or her to give their confidential information upon where they may be? That's what I'm asking. I'm not asking anything about sanctioning a board member or anything. I'm asking specifically about what does the law states, what authority we have, specifically that and that only. That's what I'm asking. Thank you.
Can you say it again? I'm sorry, what authority does the board have?
Over another board member, and in reference to asking them questions.
I think Ms.
Well,
Carter,
you
if
know,
I may,
Or directing them to give information out.
I think he's looking for what authority does the board have to ask another member who is present, if they are participating electronically, like I believe it's 21C, you said, Kathy?
Yes, 21C.
Under GC2.
GC 221C. I think he's looking into what authority do we have to ask that question, and I do not know the answer to that. Beyond that, it's our policy.
I mean, you have a position of trust with each other, so you've agreed that you're going to maintain confidentiality. So what is you've agreed to maintain confidentiality, so nobody should be present in the room. I mean, I don't know if you want me to go research the area about what authority does a board member have over another. We have, you have your board discipline. It's not a matter of authority. It's a matter of, we're asking the question of what is going, who is there. If no one's there, then confidentiality is maintained.
Okay.
All right, well, my only question is, I just want to know what authority does a board member have over another board member, and also that's all my question. I'm not actually researching anything. I'm just asking.
You know what, Mr. Smith? No, honest, with all due respect, sir, because you've asked me a question that would require me to look at the law, I just can't answer you like off the top of my head, because I don't know the answer to your question. Boom, just like that. I would need to look at it more thoroughly. So I'll be glad to do that and come back with you all at the next policy meeting.
Thank you. Mr.
Thank
Strivenger?
you. Thank you.
Oops.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was just going to flip that question and say, is it illegal for us to ask if there is anybody in the room with you when you're in electronic mode in an executive session? Because I would always ask if there's people behind you, because if you're in an airport, there might be people behind you. And I'm not sure it's illegal for us to ask a board member if they're in a secure situation. I don't think we need a law that says we can do that. I think we might be beating this to death. And if we want to talk about board members' authority to ask questions of another board member, then we're in a whole larger issue, because several times during board meetings, we've had one board member question another board member or ask for an answer from them. So I don't think we want to go there. I think we want to keep this refined to exactly the situation we're talking about. Is it illegal for the chair to ask if you're secure when you're in executive session? I just don't see what the harm is in that. And if the board member declines to answer, then that tells the rest of the board that they need to be cautious because it may not be secure. I don't see where it's a big deal.
Yeah, and you all agreed in your policy manual, you say it is the responsibility of the board member to ensure security and confidentiality of his or her participation in executive session. So if you're ensuring security and confidentiality, then there shouldn't be other people in the room with you.
Ms. Robine?
I just wanted to comment that when we first came on the board, I think Rachel and Mel and I, you couldn't participate in executive session unless you were there in person.
Yeah.
this came kind of out of necessity with COVID, but also we started to let people call in before we did Zoom to executive session so they could be part of the discussion. So this was a change in policy because before it was not permitted. So I think with that change in policy, we tried to think of some responsible way to ensure that we could, you know, to the best of our ability, make sure that executive session was still being held in a confidential manner.
And I may be remembering that incorrectly, but I believe that the reason why we started allowing people to call in was because of that AG opinion that basically said we couldn't not, but that they were liable for any breaches and things like that. That was my understanding of why we started.
Yes.
And then it was up to the individual board member of whether or not they wanted to engage in that.
Mhm.
That's my recollection. I apologize for interjecting.
That's right.
Mr. Campbell, Mr. Mel Campbell.
Yeah, I agree with you, Rachel. We looked at that policy, in fact, and trying to decide whether we were going to allow, that was you, John, and I were on the committee at that time trying to allow people to participate electronically. And according to the opinion, we had no way of not doing it, and we couldn't even assure that they were in a confident situation. So to me, what you're talking about now, there's no way we can police it. There's no way we can police it. We have to, you know, rely on the integrity of the board member to be true to the session. If you're talking executive session, I wanted to talk about the multiple device and how, you know, I mean, that's the topic, how that relates to board policy or breach of any of the regulations. I don't know, you know, if that also is an issue that can be addressed. And a person can certainly be connected with the board and still have another device, as long as that device is not board device and connected to the meeting, then we should feel secure about that. And that, I thought, was the gist of this conversation, whether a person could be on 2 devices into the board meeting or only 1 device at the board meeting. And that would be up to our technology, Robin, and Dr. Waz to assure that there's only 1 device open at the time, but the person could be on a device to the board meeting and another device to someone else at the same time. And I don't know if that's against the law. It may be against, you know, board members having, you know, integrity to the board, to other board members and the public, because, you know, you don't want to have a meeting during a meeting with other people outside of the meeting. But that's, I don't know, that's what I thought was the area in which we were going to discuss this topic. That's why, you know, what do we do with the multiple devices? We're getting into other things that I don't know, you know, if we have any jurisdiction.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Smith? Okay. Don't see any more hands, so that was some good discussion, and I will bring back some of those points to the full board or I will ask, actually, I should probably ask if one of my fellow committee members can assist in doing the report at our next board meeting, because I will not be present. So I don't know if David or Ms. Robine would like to take that charge, but we can talk about that later. Schivenger?
I'd be happy to give the report. I'm not sure what I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know we mentioned GC2, GC7H, GC8, GC21C. So we can say that we had a
Yeah, we
lively
had
discussion.
we had a discussion, but we came to no conclusion, so.
Unless someone has something they want to make. I don't. That's what I've got. Okay. So next is item F on the agenda, recommended motion from the Finance Committee to the full board of policy authorizing an annual carryover of district office student activity funds not exceeding the amount of prior year's revenues. Technology use fees shall be used for technology repairs, student devices, and protective covers. And I believe this needs placement.
Right.
So I'd ask if anybody has any recommendations on placement. I'm pulling up the. I apologize, by the way, if you hear my girls. They're being a little rowdy this afternoon.
I was wondering if it went under financial administration.
That's what-
06.
That's what I was, or asset protection, wasn't sure. Let's see. Financial administration. It could just go number 19. Superintendent shall, and then the language is. So I'm looking at here. Policy OE6, and I would think that it would make sense to add it to make a number 19, to insert a number 19 and have it say the superintendent shall authorize an annual carryover of district office and all that language. And then
Yes.
put the date there. Does anybody want to? Do we need to really make that motion? Or do we just insert it and call it a day? Madam Chair, I'd ask for your feedback on that.
So can you put the item from the agenda back up on the screen for a minute?
Hold on, I'm trying to get the policy, and so then I was gonna bring it
Yeah.
up so you can see the policies. So if you give me a moment. I have to go on. Rachel, which one did you say it was?
G, it is G,
OE6,
yeah, OC, OE,
OE6.
it would be a 19.
Okay.
And did the full board already vote on that particular
Yeah,
recommendation?
and it was coming, I thought it was coming to us for insertion.
Do you remember Robin or David or somebody?
Yes,
Did we have-
it came,
Date.
yes, it was at the July 13th meeting that the board voted on this.
Oh, then yeah, I just put it in there where it's appropriate.
Yeah, I
And then you
didn't,
can put the action taken, after it, just like these other ones
Parentheses.
have, like 16, 17, 18.
yeah. I just did, I wanted to make sure we didn't need to make a motion to insert it and then bring it back to full board. That seems.
No, I think we've already said we want it inserted.
Okay. Oh,
Thank you.
Ms. Boatright, your hand is raised.
Thank you. I was actually looking at the motion because I had a question when I went back to finance motion. One of the issues was to be in line with South Carolina Department of Education, and I didn't know what the South Carolina Department of Education, I guess, law or policy that we were trying to align to. But the motion was that the Finance Committee recommend to the full board a policy authorizing an annual carryover. So I'm not certain it was just made for insertion. I think it was to discuss whether or not this was a policy. Because I was a little confused. One of my concerns is we're talking about just district office student activity funds and not school activity funds. And that it seems to me like we don't really have the policy all that well defined at this point.
I might be able to provide a little bit of clarification on that. So I serve on the Finance Committee, just for those that don't know who are listening. And that was actually a recommendation of mine due to seeing that the district's line item and level for the student activity fund had been growing. We had asked Tanya Crosby, our CFO, to do some looking into how often or by how much that was growing over time and why. And she's been trying to spend things down, but we were looking to bring that into line. And this was actually the recommended language from Tanya to us, so that the annual carryover.
The link to the policy committee.
Oops, sorry. So this language was actually recommended to us in Finance Committee, and then to bring that forward to the full board for their approval of the policy, and then the policy committee would insert it into the manual. So hopefully that lengthy explanation made some sense. Does that bring any more clarity to it, or?
I think one of my questions was just, I don't know what the policy is exactly that we're inserting, because I know this, I think what you're referring to, and I'm still learning about student activity fees, but is just the district level, because we have an AR specifically under operations for student activity fees that basically says the balance will just move from year to year as long as the group in charge of the fee meets annually and it's audited. So to me, I just am not sure why. I don't know if we're going to create a board policy that conflicts with an AR if we're separating out district specific student activity fees, and if we put that policy, if that would have any negative impact on all the school student activity fees. I don't know. I just felt like I wasn't sure exactly what this policy was.
Gotcha. No, it's and I wish I had someone else from finance on here, or perhaps someone that might have been there for that, or Robin. I don't know if you can provide any clarity to that. But it's my understanding it would not impact the other line items, because each of the schools are broken out individually. And that's why we specifically were talking about the district office, because that one had gotten up into the millions balance wise. And
Tanya's on, if you want to ask questions, Tanya's on.
Tanya, can you speak to that, please?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't hear the entire question. I heard bits and pieces because I was logging out of YouTube into the Zoom meeting. But the student activities funds are the kind of the holding point for technology usage fees at the schools that are collected. They're collected at the school level, and then all of them are transferred to the district level. And the reasoning for that is that the district pays for repairs and for replacement devices for students. And so, out of the district accounts. And so there would be no effect on the schools. This motion or this policy would not affect the schools in any way. We would just use these funds. We've been, over the last few years, bringing down that balance to a point that we would not exceed, the end of the year balance would not exceed the total revenues that are collected that year. So it would have no effect on the schools at all. And as far as the placement in the OEs, I was looking at OE 6, and I think that that would fit nicely at OE 6.19, because we do report on a quarterly basis, and then again on an annual basis with the financial reports to the board. And this is the OE that relates to financial reporting, so that would be the best placement in our OEs as well.
Thank you so much, Tanya. I appreciate that. Dr. Glatz?
Thank you. So I have the motion summaries for all our meetings, and it was not at the July 13th board business meeting. So was it just brought up in Finance Committee, or did it come to the board at some other meeting after that?
It would have come at the next board meeting, so it would have
So
been.
that
when we
was
look at
August
the
3rd. August 3rd.
I do have it on the July 13th under the Finance Committee report.
Right, it was in the Finance Committee meeting.
I have the motion that if number 6 committee reports, number B Finance Committee, and I've got, that's where I found the motion. Then I went back into finance to see, because I couldn't remember what that was talking about.
Well, I must be missing pages, huh? Because I do not have that.
And I just got kicked out of board docs.
All right, so Robin, you got to reprint me July 13th motion summaries. Obviously, the copy I have is missing pages or missing information.
I'm trying to find it and see if there's any clarity on board docs. Yeah, motion. Yeah, motion that the recommend Final motion approved. Passed unanimously, but 2 were absent. So, okay, so it is the July 13th. Got it. Okay, so is everybody in agreement then, or are there any other questions I should ask about clarification on that?
I'll say one thing. I see it now. I just somehow missed it because I had executive session. Okay, I got it. So it did go to the full board already. And it
So-
passed unanimously, like you said.
Is OE6 number 19 agreeable to everybody for placement?
Yes,
Perfect.
So this would become a number 19.
Yes,
That's
ma'am.
what you're saying.
Yes.
Got it.
And the action taken on date of July 13th? Perfect. Okay,
What will the title be? It'll be OE-19.
OE6,
OE6.
It goes
Oh.
up,
Okay, and
it's under
I-
financial administration. Okay.
I got it. Never mind, I was off track.
trying to get back into the meeting that we're presently in here.
Okay, let me go back to that. Control panel.
Next item I see on the agenda is discussion of requested policy OE4. Clarification is needed on OE 4.8, OE 4.11, and the last paragraph of OE 4.0. So, and let me see. This, I believe, came out of Operations Committee. Do we have any members of the Operation Committee present that could speak to this? Ms. Boatright?
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Smith and I are both on Operations Committee. They were really more the requests from Alice Walton when she was trying to do the superintendent interpretation, that she felt like there was some confusion on those. And I'm trying to remember exactly what the confusion was. Mr. Smith, do you remember what her concern was?
No, I don't. No, I don't exactly. I remember what her concern was. I do know that she wanted wanted it to be sent to policy committee for clarification. Maybe that's one of the things what it was about, but I don't recall.
Okay, I think, let's see, Mr. Stribinger? Go ahead.
Did we postpone this until we get Alice Walton in here? Because she was, I remember the meeting. She was very specific about the clarification she wanted. And she said, does it mean this or does it mean that? So I don't think we can go any further without her. So I think we should postpone this until we can get her in the meeting.
Okay. Any objection to that, Ms. Dwayne?
Now, from reading the two things, I couldn't tell what needed to be done to make them clearer. I had a question about that.
Yeah, and I think one of them stems from board action, so we would have to probably look back to that to try to obtain some intent there. Okay, so I'm fine with postponing that. Robin, can you assist us in coordinating Ms. Walton on our future meeting?
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay. Last item, discussion of the SCSBA legislative resolution, tuition tax credits and vouchers. This came out of our most recent meeting. This was from me. So I wanted to open up the discussion. I know Kathy, you wanted to take a look at that statute. Were you able to find it?
I think, yes, it's in board docs, right? It was updated here, the bill.
What I put in the board docs for you all,
Yeah.
you have H 3976. And at the present time, this bill is pending. I was going to give you all a brief summary about it. As you can see, it's been sponsored by a number of our representatives. You'll see on there, Erickson, Davis, Herb Kirschman, Newton, and the House Ways and Means Revenue Policy Legislative Committee carried over this bill. It provides state funding for public schools to pay for expenses for students to attend private schools and other eligible expenses. The bill would provide scholarships equal to the state average of state funding per pupil in public schools as determined by the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office to parents of eligible students through an individual online payment platform known as the Education Scholarship Act. That's the title of that bill. The funding would be used to pay for a broad list of eligible education expenses, typically via a debit card that includes private school tuition and fees, tutors, books, online learning programs, private tutoring, and more. Subcommittee Chairman Merle Smith said at the beginning of the meeting that the bill would not advance to allow the subcommittee time to discuss the funding of the program, and due to the lack of a fiscal impact statement. Chairman Merle also said the bill would eventually, he thought, would pass out of subcommittee.
I can't hear Wendy if she's talking.
I can't either. I don't know if she froze or. Oops.
Yeah.
He wants decisions regarding state efforts to that the school boards told me today that they opposed mandated efforts that would indirectly or directly subsidize elementary, secondary, private, religious, or homeschools with public funds. And in that bill in D, it just said that the department would create an individual online account for each student and transfer an amount that is equivalent to the state average of state funding per pupil in public schools for the current fiscal year as determined by the Revenue and Fiscal Affairs Office. The amount deposited shall not include federal or local funds. But so the bill is in a transition state at this time. And then the other area that you all had asked about the state of the exceptional needs tuition tax credit program revisions. There's a handout from the School Boards Association from May 17th of 2021. Excuse me. So now Exceptional SC is administering that program, and the School Boards Association didn't recommend any policy changes, and that bill is attached in the board docs for you all.
Yes, and
That was signed by the governor May 17th, 2021.
That's the one that I had been discussing at the board meeting. I'm not sure about the other one that was presented that you just were speaking on.
Yeah, that is the one that's referenced in here too. So that bill is, I wanted you all to be aware of it, especially because it was sponsored by so many of our legislators.
So the H 3976, I didn't see that one referenced in the SCSBA resolutions. I saw another one, and they do talk about various subsequent, but the last time I believe it was revised was in 2014. And that's what I was trying to kind of bring attention to was that the resolution handbook that we have for 2021 shows that item 32 resolution that's titled tuition tax credits and vouchers was last revised in 2014. And I was speaking directly to the exceptional needs tuition tax credit program, which has two different iterations, if you will. One was from 2014 and then another in 2015, and it was codified into law in 2018. It was previously in a budget proviso. And this is the first time I'm seeing this information from SCSBA in regard to the exceptional needs tuition tax credit program. So I had never seen
And
that.
you're right, Dr. Osetsky, because it's 12-6-3790B that was amended.
Mhm. So that was what I was trying to get to, was that the exceptional needs tuition tax credit program, I didn't understand if SCSBA was lumping this in with all the others that they're speaking to in number 30, the resolution 32. So I thank you for pulling up this information and getting this update. I just hadn't seen it.
Trying to get everything I could for you. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry, let me open up Zoom. Ms. Robine?
Yes, so the way that I looked at this was resolution number 32 does not include the tax credit revisions for exceptional needs students. So the SCSB does not recommend any policy changes for the tuition tax credit program, but they do oppose the tuition tax credits and vouchers, which I agree with. You know, that resolution number 32, if it was not, you know, what House Bill 3976 calls for, basically, in my view of reading this, is vouchers for private schools, and that's not something I can support.
So you're of the understanding that, because this is the first time, like I said, that I've seen this note on in regard to that specific program. So it's your understanding that SCSBA doesn't advocate for or against the exceptional needs tax credit, which that's what it does appear based on the bottom of this note. It says local district action required. SCSBA does not recommend any policy changes, and they don't have any policy references. So I assume as well that they are not against it. I just wonder if there's any way that we can get clarification of that so that we're not misinterpreting it. Because I think it's a wonderful program. I think it fills a gap that is sorely needed for our exceptional students in South Carolina. And I just wanted to make sure that I wanted to know what SCSBA's position was on it.
And what happened was it changed, the program administration changed from the Department of Revenue to exceptional SC will now be responsible.
Right. Yeah, there's been quite a few changes with the program in the last few years, but I appreciate you doing the work to get that for us, Ms.
You're
Cartlidge.
welcome. Yes.
And I don't know at this point if it requires a modification to this language to come to the full board, or if there's any way that we could seek, just to make sure that our understanding is correct, Ms. Robine, on that. I don't know if we can shoot over an email to Scott Price. Sorry, Mr. Campbell, I see your hands raised.
Yes, the South Carolina School Board Association opposed this policy.
Right.
They've always opposed it. And the thing that I don't understand, they talk about giving people tax credit and vouchers to go to private school. What about those parents that doesn't have the transportation to take their child to the school? You know, so it's not fair. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Stripinger?
Thank you. I think our next step is in fact to query the association with that specific question. Get a definitive answer from them, because it could be an issue and maybe it's not an issue. So, I don't know who would send that. Was that something that Wendy would do for us, or was that something this committee needs to do? I'm not comfortable doing it, but.
I would be glad if you'd like me to. Just tell me again exactly what you want me to ask. I'm glad to do that. It's no problems.
Okay. I will turn that back over to you, Rachel.
Yeah, Rachel. Okay.
I want to make sure Ms. Robine has a chance to speak before I clarify that.
No, I must not have put my hand down, sorry.
And Ms. Cartledge, certainly please make sure that Superintendent Rodriguez is good with us
Oh,
asking.
yes, yes.
But we just wanted, I think, clarification on whether or not SCSBA's resolution number 32 includes and I'll pull up the language because I don't want to say it wrong here, the exceptional needs tuition tax credit program.
Okay,
Because if it does include it, then that's an issue, I think. If it
Okay.
does not, per this note that we have here from them, which we believe perhaps they are not in opposition to it, then it's a moot issue.
okay.
Does that jive with everybody else?
Yes.
Dr. Glatz?
Yeah, I think you stated it exactly the way I would state it. And Wendy, I think I would suggest that you send your query to Debbie Elmore, since she seems to be the one that's most involved with this
Yes,
resolution handbook.
yes, and I had spoken with her today, and also board members. I did brief Dr. Rodriguez that I had done the research because he was there on Friday when you were speaking about it, so it's fine with me presenting.
Wonderful. Ms. Boatright?
Sorry, this is another dumb new person question. What do we do? Like, let's say they come back and say, yeah, no, we oppose the exceptional tax credit provision. What does that mean? Like, I just don't understand exactly our relationship. I mean, I understand our relationship to SCSBA, but how this all works. Then we write a letter to them, or do we have a discussion with the full board about, the different aspects of all these resolutions? What would be the next step?
I'm actually going to ask Dr. Glatz if she can speak to, because I know her and Ms. Robine also had presented resolutions before, and you know the process very intimately. So I'm going to ask if you could perhaps take that one for me.
Sure, I'd be happy to. So at the delegate assembly is in early December. And so these resolutions will be discussed or modified or amended or whatever words you want to use, provided that different school boards, have concern with a particular resolution. So if that, what's it called, exceptional needs tax credit,
Mhm.
is included, let's say, in 32. We think it's not, but let's say it is included in 32. Well, then our board before December 4th would have to take a vote. Do we want to challenge the wording of 32 or whatever, put in different wording of 32? And then our delegates that are representing our board on December 4th could bring that forward to the assembly. And then it would be voted on actually by the entire assembly. So that's kind of the process. Early on each year, before, by I think it's June 15th, school board can submit a legislative proposal that the Board of Directors for South Carolina School Boards Association end up, I think, discussing and voting on whether or not it goes into this handbook. And ours did go into the handbook last year about the expansion of broadband statewide, but ultimately it was still the delegate assembly, the individual boards and the delegates representing those boards that had to vote whether to include it or not. And that actually passed unanimously. Does
And as
that,
a quick follow, yeah, I just want,
Fair.
because that helps me understand, because when we got that at the work session, I was like, why are we talking? As a follow-up to that, there are other ways that we advocate with the legislature besides the SCSBA, right? We can write letters directly. We've done that, I think. We have written letters. So this is just one of the avenues that our school board has to advocate with the legislature. Is that correct?
I would say exactly that's correct. This is the route that SCSBA is going to advocate on all school boards in the state on their behalf. But we could send a letter, and we have. I think our letter actually to about increasing the steps from 23 to 28.
Yeah.
We did send to the general, well, we sent it to the Beaufort County delegation because Lynn Stokes Murray had recommended just presenting it to the General Assembly. But the SCSBA will not take that forward for us. They say they already have a resolution about the salary should be consistent with the national average. And so they feel that covers it. And the other thing was they said that there are school boards in the state that couldn't afford to do the funding for that 5-step increase, and that the funding would be mandated, but not it'd be unfunded. It would be a mandated but unfunded. So that's another reason why they didn't want to do it.
Thank you for the clarification. I appreciate it.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Glatz. Appreciate
You're
that.
welcome.
Okay, so then it's my understanding Miss Cartledge is going to send that note or make that phone call to try to get us clarification, and then I think that the members of the committee kind of know what the next step is. If Miss Cartledge, how quickly do you think you could get a response for us? Because I know that we are under somewhat of a time constraint with an upcoming meeting.
Well, it's probably, if I send the email today and I'll copy all of you, I would think they'd get back with me tomorrow. They close at, I know the School Boards Association closes at 4:30.
Okay, perfect.
Yep. So
Well, we can go from there then.
Okay.
Next item on the agenda is discussion of future meeting dates. So I think depending on if there's any action necessary from that conversation. Otherwise, if they come back and they say it's not included, it's a moot issue. So I don't think we would need to have any future meeting date, but we do have that outstanding item G in regard to those OEs that Ms. Walton wanted clarification on. So let's, if Robin, you have a calendar available, let's see here. What does everybody look like for? Let's see, is November 15th okay with everybody? Oh, David, I'm sorry, I see your hand. Mr. Stribinger?
I was just going to suggest that we should probably pivot around Alice Walton's availability for our next meeting. Let's find out what's best for her, and then we can adjust to that.
I can do that. I can ask her.
Good point. Awesome. Well, if you want to just query her and then the members, and we'll go ahead and get something on the calendar. If no one has anything further, do we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Mr. Stribinger, I think you said second.
But that waving hand is
Yeah.
yes. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.